Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Awakening, written by Eric Pringle, which would be his only Doctor Who script, and is directed by Michael Owen Morris, which would be his only story for Doctor Who as well. This is a two-part adventure, and is the last traditional two-parter in the classic series. Every other two-parter after this would feature a new 45-minute format. So this was the last short two-parter in the series. And it was also the first story since Black Orchid. Ironically enough, the first two-parter in the Peter Davison era. It is the first story since then to have no recurring monster. Although the pterodactyls from the Visitation do get a mention. Now, this story is a very strange in terms of its popularity, because it's not a very well liked story. I've heard a lot of people say that it's boring, it's a bit dull, it just feels like a bit of fluff. But this story tackles the Doctor, Tegan and Turlough in a small village where there's a goth-like plot with a malevolent evil just haunting the small village. And if you know me and you know that I'm a huge fan of the Peter Hinchcliffe era and the Barry Letts era, you may guess, but I really enjoyed this story. And you would be right, I absolutely love The Awakening. However, I will state, for the purposes of fairness, that it does tickle a particular itch for me, as I do really like this kind of storytelling. And so it seems to be in my interests, it has all the stuff that I like in my classic Doctor Who. But anyway, so yeah, there's not really much to talk about behind the scenes. There was a famous a famous blooper in which Peter Davison and a few of the extra cast members walk through a little coven after getting off a horse, and the horse follows them and breaks the thing that they went through, and that became one of British's most famous bloopers. It is also, I believe the guy's name is Barry Newbird, who was a designer for Doctor Who. It was his final contribution, and he'd been working on the show ever since The Unearthly Child. So this has a massive contribution, massive point of notice, despite its very low-key storyline and its very low-key premise. The Doctor, Tegan and Turlough land in a small village as Tegan wants to see her grandfather. And whilst there, they discover that the village is doing a recreation of a battle in, I believe it's 1643, my apologies. But a few people are taking it a bit too far, and so some people get really caught up into it, and they threaten to basically arrest the Doctor, Tegan and Turlough for just entering the village, to holding up at gunpoint and threatening them. It's also important to note that they landed the TARDIS inside a ruined a ruined church, and this church has evil drawings on the floor and markings of this creature called the Malice, a demon-like creature. And also here, Turlough notices a giant crack in the wall. And before any of you new fans think no, it's not the cracking time from season 5. It's not that big of a plot point, at least not in terms of the wider Doctor Who mythology, just purely on this story. And so the story just really revolves around the Doctor, Tegan and Turlough just figuring out what's going on. They later meet Jane, a teacher who doesn't get involved in the war games, and so everybody else acts as if she's basically mad for not anticipating. And at one point when she is just wandering around the village, she actually gets captured by a few of people in horses, and she gets really annoyed at the captain of the village. I can't remember his name. It does not say on the back of his on it, but never mind. And she's basically the person that really grounds the story, as despite it having a very grounded plot, it does take a little bit of wacky personalities to let this through, as we have a villain that really plays his character over the top. And I think here it really works because in terms of the plot, it needs somebody who would be, who we can believe that they would believe that they could get caught up in reenacting so much that they would even threaten to sacrifice their Queen of May and held people at gunpoint. So we need somebody who's a bit more larger than life, and they had the perfect guy to cast this villain, and him just getting immersed in this world. Also, we get Jane, which I've already talked about, and I really like her character and how she's the more grounded person into the story. And we also have Ben, a lieutenant who starts playing into the war games, although he's still more of a realist. He still believes that these war games are just games for the moment. Although he is starting to realise that throughout the adventure that the main character, the main villain, is taking it a bit too far, and he is kind of like, what the hell is going on a bit. And so Tegan and Turlough and Tegan Turlough and the Doctor get into his office, and they discuss everything, and the Doctor explains that they're looking for Tegan's grandfather, to which it's revealed that he's gone missing, so to speak. However, there seems to be some conspiracy going wrong, as the main villain seems to not really much state, but he kind of reveals to us audience that he bit knows it more than he can. He bit more than he knows, as Tegan goes running off because nobody seems concerned that her grandfather's gone missing. And when one of his henchmen mentions that she is the granddaughter of one of the villagers, whose specific name I can't remember, Andy something, the captain decides to basically go after Tegan, go after Turlough, and go after the Doctor. And and the Doctor finds this really odd and really strange, and so the Doctor goes back to Tegan gets her bag stolen by this strange man in rags, seemingly from 1643, and he bumps into the Doctor, and the Doctor tries chasing him, only for him to be getting way ahead of him, and even the Doctor acts surprised, and so he follows him into the castle, only for a crack to appear onto the wall, another crack, and smashing through it is Will Chumbler, a character who's actually from 1643, although at this point in time the Doctor believes he is a projection from the past, like the person he was following, because there was some signs this character had like blocky appearance around him. And so the Doctor teams up with this young lad, and he's a very likeable character. He's a character who's trying to run away from the recent war that he was suffering, but he's also clearly not educated. He has some trouble with understanding people, and he mentions as well that he's actually seen the Malice, the demon-like creature that haunts this small village. And I think he's a great character. He's a likeable character, but he's not like a huge character that I think that he would have been a massive plot, if that makes any sense. It was rumoured, I don't know if it's true or not, according to the wiki, some sources say that Eric Saywood and John Nathan Turner did say this, and in other cases, Eric Saywood said that he had hadn't even heard of these plans to make of this plan, that they were going to make Will a companion. However, they thought that the audience would get pretty tired of his past dialogue and his past, him being from 1643, and they think that he might get pretty annoying. I don't know about that, because Jamie McCrinnen was a very similar character, and he was one of the most beloved characters in the TV show. He's one of the most beloved companions. So I don't know about that. I think what's more likely is that this idea of him becoming a companion is strictly just a rumour. I think it was just believed because he seemed like very close to the Doctor. And whilst Tegan and Turlough are trying to find Tegan's grandfather and trying to chase after the Doctor, Will basically becomes the companion as the Doctor. And their dynamic I really like here. There's a great bit where the Doctor's trying to get some information on the Malice as he sees a drawing of a demon-like figure on the floor. And the Doctor's trying to work out, is that the person you've seen? Is that the creature? And when he gets his information, when Will seems to be suffering from some sort of shock, the Doctor calms him down. It's like it's all right, it's okay, you're not harmed, you're perfectly fine. Which it brings out the sweet, charming charisma of Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor. I really like that little element. And it's here that the Doctor discovers a small cavern which leads straight back into the main villain's house, to which the Doctor and Will save Jane. Now, we talk about Will being a companion, but in my personal opinion, I would have really liked to seen Jane as a companion. She has a very sweet attitude. She's a bit more reasonable than most people, and when the Doctor explains to her that something that he picked up from the floor is actually part of an alien spacecraft, and that it's from an alien planet, she is like, you're absolutely mad. You're like, I've replaced one madman with another. And she seems to be the more reasonable out of everybody. But that doesn't mean that she is, by all, sweet for sweet, as there's a great bit in which somebody basically shouts at her for not taking the games as seriously, and she just slaps him across the face. That actor must have been his face must have been absolutely stinging when they filmed that. It looked really genuine as well. And I really like the woman who played her. Doesn't say on the back as well. That's very helpful. But anyway, I would have liked to see Jane as companion. It would have been nice to see a much older character being a companion for a change. Something which would not be realised until Big Finish did it with the Sixth Doctor, one of the Sixth Doctor's audio companions. But yeah, I think she would have made a great companion. But yeah, so the Doctor takes her back to the castle, and the Doctor examines the massive crack on the wall as energy starts to shake up the castle, and the Doctor smashes in it and reveals a giant face of Malice, who seems to have some sort of effect on the Doctor as he screams, puts his hand to his head and starts easing in pain. And that's the cliffhanger for part 1. And it's a really iconic, I really like the dark, gloomy set in which when the Doctor smashes through the crack, it's literally just black shadow, and then the green eyes of the Malice appears out into the crack, and his mouth breathes with steam. And yeah, that's really cool. Now let's talk about Michael Owen Morris's directing here. This would be, like I said, his only Doctor Who contribution, and he does a fan-bloody-tastic job. It reminds me a lot of Barry Lett's era directing. It's a lot more simplified compared to what we would see usually in a John Nathan Turner era. But it still gets what it needs across. The scenery set in the village is very brightly lit. Could be just because it's on a nice sunny day. But Morris really knows how to bring out the very low-key country kind of feeling, like a farmish village throughout this story, and it just looks gorgeous when we're looking into the village. But the main point of interest in terms of directing is the scenes shot in the castle. I believe it's a set, but it looks very good, and I like the dark gloomy of it. And any other weekly director might have asked for brighter lights or made it too gloomy and too dark. But Morris hits a nice strike that reminds me a lot of the demons from the Third Doctor era, in which we have like an almost cult-like feeling to the story. In fact, comparing this to the demons is kind of ironic, because a lot of fans criticised this story, taking a lot of elements from the demons, specifically the plot of a small village which is being controlled to do some evil work and locking people out, and a dynamic creature giving the leader power. But according to Pringle, he never actually seen the demons. So that comparison is purely by fan speculation, or at least that's what he claims anyway. We know. But anyway, so yeah, the story looks really good, and despite it only being 2 parts, it really sticks out in my memory. It's one of those stories I always go back to. I've probably watched this story so many times. It was one of my favourite stories watching it on VHS, and I enjoy it still whilst watching it on DVD. So yeah, anyway, so part 2 is basically the Doctor mainly discovering that the Malice uses psychic projection, psychic energy, like humans use electricity. And so what's happening is that the mental energy of the war games is creating so much fuss that it's re-emerging Malice, and he can use this energy to create mental projections and send things from the past into the future to try and strengthen that connection. and it also seems to be powered by fear, and that's why he's controlling the main villain to basically cause as much havoc as Tegan gets captured and becomes the queen of the May. And according to their folklore, the Queen of the May gets, I believe, burnt or crucified. And so this character getting really into the war games and is mentally controlled by the malice was going to sacrifice Tegan. However, she gets away, and so Doctor and Jane and Will, and it really feels like an ensemble cast now, as Ben, who starts to feel a bit more like this has gone completely out of hand when the villain is about to shoot the Doctor in point blank range, and what he does instead is he gives the gun to Ben and asks Ben to shoot the Doctor. And it's at this point he realises that he's gone absolutely mad. And so we have, like, in terms of like surrogate companions, we have 3, and also with Tegan and Turlough also being companions, not counting Chameleon, who actually appeared in a deleted scene in this story, which you can find on the DVD. He only had a scene but was cut for time, which is a real shame. But anyway, so yeah, we have like kind of like 3 surrogate companions, and they all seem to team up. And I really like the scenes right at the very end when the Doctor weakens the Malice's connection. In a really great, cool scene in which the Malice has a psychic projection of himself inside the TARDIS, just hanging in the corner there. And I really love that, the imagery of this demon-like creature just hanging on the TARDIS wall. But anyway, the Doctor then and his new found crew, shall we say. Oh, and I forgot to mention as well, Turlough finds Tegan's grandfather, who is revealed that he found out about the Malice, and he told basically our main villain everything. The mental projection of him with the war games and him, and with this as well, basically infueled him to carry out the Malice's plan. And so in part 2, Tegan's grandfather also becomes a surrogate companion. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have the 7 main characters basically, and the shot when the Malice is using psychic projections of warriors from 1643 to come up to the Doctor, and you see them all like standing around behind him, and they all basically engulf the camera. It reminds me a lot of Harry Potter, especially the later ones, in which a group of them have all like teamed up together and are back to back, stranded in one corner, desperate for help. But however, they get these soldiers get distracted, and they decapitate a red shirt, an unnamed character, and because of that, the projection weakens. And the main villain then comes in with shotgun in hand, threatening the Doctor and his crew not to ruin the war games. And the Doctor's trying to convince him to stop. And then a small little battle brawl comes out as Ben tries to attack this main villain, and then Will pushes him into the face of the Malice, destroying his energy for good, creating and engulfing the church, destroying the church with the Malice in it. And the story ends with Tegan and Turlough basically stating that they want to stay there for a while, and the Doctor is said he's going to take everybody home. He's going to take Will home, and everybody else home, and it's probably the most we see in the TARDIS room. Many people in the TARDIS room, and the story ends with a joke of the Doctor talking about tea, and Will is like, it sounds like an evil brew, and the Doctor's like, it is indeed, but I rather like it. And then we get the cliffhanger, not the cliffhanger, the end of the story. And so that's The Awakening. Overall, it's a very great story, in my opinion. I really love it. I love the atmosphere in the church, and I love the bright scenery and gorgeous looking village that that this story is set in. The Doctor, Tegan and Turlough mainly get caught up in the adventure, and all the new characters are nice and likeable, though the story might feel a little bit rushed at some points, and Tegan and Turlough themselves don't really get much to do apart from getting captured and then breaking free and then getting captured again and constantly rinse and repeat. But the Doctor's main plot is very interesting, and the characters he gets introduced to are very likeable and very intriguing to help get the plot to get you interested in. Now, for continuity interests, the Doctor, the story ends with the Doctor basically promising to get everybody home, and Tegan and Turlough saying that they want to stay there for a bit. And so really Will could technically still be a companion as the Doctor tries to get him back onto back to his own time. So a lot of fan theory, you can make a fan theory, I should say, or like a fan film or a fan novel or a fan thing where Will is a companion. I would like to see that. If anybody's interested in making that and has any ideas for a story, please let me know. I'd really like to hear a Will as a companion story, just to hear something new and different. But in terms of my interest at this point, in terms of canon, is that it leaves the door open for some stories in which the Fifth Doctor doesn't have a companion. Well, not really, but in terms of the main branch of continuity, it allows the Doctor to have some stories without any companions, because in TV, the Fifth Doctor isn't shown with any era to have no companions. So this opens a little door in terms of mass merchandise of Doctor Who to allow the Doctor to have a companionless adventure. And speaking of companionless adventures, join me next time where the Doctor helps a young couple get back to their own time, and the Doctor also meets Leonardo da Vinci and helps them take down a cult-like group as they worship the evil of a stone-like creatures. So join me next time for Fallen Angels, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!